Andrew Coleman rolls onto his stomach, propping himself up on his elbows. His back and shoulders are bare, a sheen of sweat glistening in the moonlight. I'm there too, lying on my side, tracing nonsense symbols into the curves of his back. I think I need to get a girlfriend, he says. I retract my hand. It hovers above his back like a mosquito. Oh, no offense, he says. I just think I need to find a girl to date, you know? We had been hooking up for almost 3 months now, seeing each other at least once a week. Yup, I say, pulling on my shirt. Damn it, inside out. Bro, we could still fuck around and stuff, he says. Yup, I say, buttoning my jeans. I said no offense, he says, finally standing, incredulous, his penis dangling and his tube socks still on. Yup, I say, shutting the door behind me. It's a decade later now. I'm happily married, but I find myself with a strange problem. I can't stop thinking about Andrew Coleman. Lately, no matter where I go, I see his face. At the mall, coming down the street, sitting at a bus stop. Andrew and I started talking again recently, and all of this might seem normal, except that my visions, my double takes, aren't of Andrew. The face that I keep seeing is that of his glorious labradoodle Newton. Oh, Newton, you perfectly smushable goon. Every time I see a dog with curly fur, I think of his long ears, his politely crossed paws, his deep and abiding disdain for his adopted brother Nacho. I see his giant sad eyes in beagles and mastiffs and Akitas, his floppy ears in basset hounds and Springer spaniels. Because these days, Andrew isn't sending dick pics. He's sending dog pics. And to be perfectly honest, Newton isn't my only paramour. In fact, recently I'm living vicariously through pictures of multiple ex-boyfriends' dogs. Maybe this was always the logical endpoint of technology. We thought that the infinite miracle of the internet would expand our minds beyond our mundane, earthbound horizons. The truth is, with a boundless universe of knowledge at our fingertips, the only thing we are really interested in, besides a cat and a guinea pig that are besties. I know. Is reliving our misspent childhoods. First, there's James Wright. James and I had been close in the age of AIM and MSN Messenger. Back when we were in middle school, my teenage friends used to stay up until 3 or 4 every night messaging. In those days, we might talk about love, or the shape of the universe, or whether the stars watch us back. We talked about the infinite and the finite. We talked about Sartre. We talked about Vonnegut. After all, hell really is other people. So it goes. James and I never met face-to-face in the first 2 years of our friendship. We spent hours every day learning each other's secret thoughts and ethical boundaries and intrinsic desires, yet we had never touched, never kissed, never laughed in the same space. When we did meet, it was a thoroughly sloppy mess. We knew almost nothing about each other's lives, but we felt like we knew everything about each other's minds. It was intoxicating. One night, I drove the 40 minutes to his house in the small hours of the morning. It was pouring rain, a small miracle in a state as dry as Utah, and the only light in the world came from battered orange bulbs flickering haphazardly in empty construction sites. I remember the sound of the windshield wipers. I remember his lips along my shoulder blade. And of course, I remember his dad catching us outside naked in the grass when we set off the motion detector lights in the yard. You haven't really been yelled at until you've had "damn kids" screamed at you in a Scottish accent by a middle-aged man wearing only his underwear. James is going through a divorce now. He says the only thing getting him through it is Dizzy, his floof of a husky with crystal blue eyes. She's so pure white that she tends to get lost in the snowdrifts that accumulate overnight in a Utah winter. James says the secret is to look for the dancing snow and to carry a good supply of dog bribes. Recently, James's beard, which he has been cultivating for almost 7 years with the care and devotion one might give to an aged bonsai tree, was demolished in a horrible accident. While trimming the edges, he was interrupted by a dizzy hug. I imagine him looking down in horror through 1/3 of a beard and 7 years of beard-based tan lines at Dizzy, upside down on the shower mat, her cybernetic eyes whispering seductively, "Belly rubs." I hooked up with James in high school with the goal of pissing off our mutual friend Eric Scott, who I secretly loved. Thank you. I count this as a rousing success. Because Eric didn't talk to me again for years and years. In fact, we only found each other again recently. Eric doesn't have a dog, but he does have a 5-year-old daughter, which is pretty much like a dog. But people judge you even harder when you leave them in the car while you run into the store for beer and Q-tips. The day I learned about his daughter, Maddie, I felt a shock that verged on panic. You assume when you leave someone's life that they'll stay static, waiting for you to come back, that when you find them again, neither of you will have changed. The beauty and the tension is that people don't change, but their circumstances do. I blinked, and Eric is a father. I looked away for a moment, and the boy I wrote poems about in my super secret 7th grade journal is suddenly holding a tiny blonde monster with eyes like his and a wicked smile that says, "Hug attack." Maddie has more delight in a line of ants on the sidewalk than I have had in all my life. I would be hard-pressed to decide whether I'd rather have a Dizzy hug or a Maddie hug, and in order to avoid making such perilous choices, and perhaps because I was starting to feel weird about sending so many messages to boys I had once loved that just said, "pick," with a winky face, I decided that one dumb action deserves another. And so I reached out to some of the boys I messed around with in college. Reaching out to Josh Patterson is an exercise in frustration. Even at our closest, our text-based communication has never been enlightening. Our relationship was born purely of the surreal and physical magic of the night. Josh and I used to run through the woods, skidding down slopes of scree, clutching at thistles and branches and tall grasses. We would swim naked in the creek, our bodies intertwining and coming apart soundlessly. He would do magic tricks. We founded a Bigfoot seeker society called Sasquatch. It's watching. Don't worry about it. We debated the ethical ramifications of cannibalism. The first time I told him that I loved him, he ghosted me. But 2 weeks later, with the eloquence of a scholar and the grace of a king, he texted, "Want a bone?" To my absolute shock, this time when I wrote to him, Josh not only texted me back, but told me all about his life. He moved to Philly with both his siblings. As children, they had planned to open a bowling alley. As adults, they are taking the much less whimsical approach of opening a dermatology practice. He says, only half facetiously, that he's looking forward to getting rich prescribing lotion for the rest of my life. Josh's companion for the last few years has been Jabba the pup, his 130-pound Roddy. The pup is a monster of epic proportions, with jowls that leak drool in the driest of deserts. He is burly, and he is magnificent, and at any given moment he is backing up into your face for tushy scritches. I find the existence of the pup shocking. Here is something entirely new for me. A wild Josh appears, a whole intact person with a concrete life and a doggo existing even in daylight. And as for Andrew Coleman, the lax bro I hooked up with freshman year, do you remember him, penis dangler? He responded to my initial overtures with boundless enthusiasm. Andrew's living in New Hampshire these days with his wife and their two floofers, Newton and Nacho, who have absolutely no limit to their excitement. Every Saturday, from September through April, Andrew takes them skiing in the backcountry. They bound along, knocking one another into snowdrifts, Nacho carrying at all times his very special, most favoritist frisbee. The joy in Andrew's response was unexpected, but somehow comforting. He had thought of me in the time we were apart, and it had made him smile. The first night, we talked for hours about the crazy products his medical engineering startup is trying to produce, the jobs I'm trying to get if I ever finish up grad school. We traded wedding pictures. We didn't mention those narrow college beds with their vinyl-coated mattresses. We didn't mention how little and how much we had meant to each other. It's odd. I've spent the last few months showing off dogs I've never met to strangers as though they were my own. But I'm starting to wonder if in a way they are mine. I've had too many people in my life who only existed at night. People I was connected to by passion, by adventures, by psilocybin-induced epiphanies. Those feelings were real, but these days I want more. How much of my life have I spent trying to capture wisps of smoke in my caged hands? How many layers of people, how much of the fire beneath the smoke did I never bother to see? These dogs, these boys, men now, are gifts. They're becoming human to me. We're becoming, for the first time, friends. Somehow, I think happiness is always immediate, a gift of the present. Sadness, pain, fear, all stretch out in time. Fear of a future, regret for the past. But right now, in this moment, I'm happy. So, Newton, Dizzy, Nacho, Jabba, wanna bone?
That was hand